Now, President Trump, he did react to this news on Truth Social, writing in part, quote, "Great news for America. The ratings challenge. Jimmy Kimmel show is canceled. Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done. Kimmel has zero talent and worse ratings than even Colbert, if that's possible." Now, the left already, starting with Humpty Dumpty, fake news, CNN, J.B. Pritzker, Gavin Newsom, predictably claiming this is conservative censorship. The MAGA crowd, Donald Trump got Jimmy Kimmel. That is false. I can't find a single prominent conservative voice in the country that even remotely wanted or hoped or was pushing to get Jimmy Kimmel taken off the air. Nobody. It just was simple. People changed the channel. They didn't watch him. Not one person can I think of. Maybe there's one, but I can't think of them. Now, truth be told, Jimmy Kimmel's show was failing spectacularly. I've seen the ratings. They're awful. His ratings are far below even that of Stephen Colbert, who was canceled. Now, why, you ask? This is supposed to be a late-night comedy show. It has become nothing more than nonstop, never-ending hate Donald Trump. That's the show. As a result, the ratings have been in the sewer. It has been spiraling downwards for years. And once the ratings go down, revenues go down as well. They go hand in hand. In other words, Jimmy Kimmel simply failed at his job. He lost his audience, then he lost revenue, and then stations, groups, they had enough after this comment, about a husband and father of two. They said enough's enough, low ratings, no money, what's the point? And that is the predictable outcome in television. There's no pressure group outside that was pushing for Jimmy Kimmel to be silenced. I'm sure he'll end up having a platform somewhere. He'll have a podcast. He'll be able to curse at everything. My understanding is most station groups were just fed up with his show. First, the TV group Nexstar, followed by the TV group Sinclair, telling Disney they don't want the show anymore. It's not working for them. They can't sell it. It's not getting ratings. And my understanding, it's going to be replaced with Steve Harvey's Celebrity Family Feud. Actually, is a good show and funny, much funnier than Kimmel. Given Kimmel's disastrous ratings, history of crass commentary, lack of any humor, chasing away more than half the country, vile attacks on people he disagrees with politically, is not a shock. He did this to himself. Nobody pushed. He jumped. And remember, this is Brendan Carr said to podcaster Betty Johnson today, quote, "What people don't understand is broadcasters are entirely different than people who use other forms of communication. They have a license granted by us at the FCC, and what comes with it is an obligation to operate in the public interest. From my perspective, it's frankly amazing his show lasted this long." FCC Chairman Brendan Carr is here now with the latest. Sir, welcome to the program. Can you explain that difference? Go into more detail.
Yeah, broadcasters are different than any other form of communication, including here. We're on cable right now. Fox News doesn't have an FCC license. CNN doesn't. But ABC, CBS, NBC, those broadcast stations do. And with that license comes a unique obligation to operate in the public interest. And over the years, the FCC walked away from enforcing that public interest obligation. I don't think we're better off as a country for it. But look, President Trump ran directly at these legacy broadcast outlets, and he exposed them to these market forces. And a lot of these affiliate groups said, to your point, we're tired of carrying this stuff. Late night shows, something's gone seriously awry there. They went from going for applause, from laugh lines to applause lines. They went from being court jesters that would make fun of everybody in power to being court clerics and enforcing a very narrow political ideology. And Nexstar, as you noted, stood up and said, look, we have the license and we don't want to run this anymore. We don't think it serves the interests of our community. Sinclair did the same thing. So there's more work to go, but I'm very glad to see that America's broadcasters are standing up to serve the interests of their community. We don't just have this progressive foie gras coming out from New York and Hollywood.
And there are plenty of other platforms. I mean, I think he'd be a perfect fit, for example, at Fake News CNN, considering he really didn't ever want to do a comedy show. He wanted to do a news show with, maybe a dose of what he thought was funny for a very limited, small audience. What's interesting, Brendan Carr, as I look at the media landscape out there, I want to get your thoughts on this. Even the broadcast channels and the cable channels and newspapers around the country, if you look back to the last election, they did everything to smear, slander, attack, besmirch Donald Trump day in and day out. The Department of Justice was weaponized under Biden and Harris. They threw everything they had at this man. And guess what? He still won. And I said after the election that the legacy media died, because if they had any impact, it's long gone. And I think they have lost the trust of the American people because of the very reason you're describing. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, look, I mean, President Trump ran against immense odds. These legacy media outlets threw everything at him, almost every single hoax imaginable, right? Biden is sharp as a tack, burying the Hunter Biden laptop story, the Russia collusion hoax. And most politicians would have just gone along with that narrative or not fought at all. But President Trump punched back. And when he did so, he was standing up for the American people that simply don't trust those outlets anymore. We at the FCC are going to enforce the public interest obligation. If there's broadcasters out there that don't like it, they can turn their license in to the FCC. But that's our job. And again, we're making some progress now.
Do you believe, based on the list that you just gave us, that broadcasters that had a particular agenda were trying to use the license that they were granted, not in the public interest, but to advance a political cause?
I think so.
Is that an in-kind donation?
I think there's evidence of that. Look, running a narrow partisan circus, whatever the public interest means, it's not that. And we are working to reinvigorate that. This action today by Nexstar and Sinclair, frankly, it's unprecedented. I can't imagine another time when we've had local broadcasters tell what we call a national programmer like Disney that your content no longer meets the needs and the values of our community. So this is an important turning point. And frankly, speaking of that, obviously, Charlie Kirk set out to change the country, to change the culture, and the results of his work are continuing to produce results, and that's a good thing.
I found the comments of Jay Leno, who I always thought was very funny. He took on all comers. He went after the left. He went after the right. He went after Republican presidents. He went after Democratic presidents. His goal was to be funny, and I always thought he was funny. And he raised the question when Colbert got fired, why would you purposely alienate half of your potential audience by just being one-sided? I thought it was a great question. I'm not sure why some of these quote, late-night comedians that aren't really funny to me, why they didn't do it. And then it's interesting to watch somebody like Bill Maher, who had interviewed Charlie Kirk, basically say he was heartbroken and sick over what had happened to him. Didn't hear from a lot of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, you can't avoid ratings. At the end of the day, the market is going to be undefeated. And a lot of these corporations, Disney and Comcast, they have been protecting and frankly subsidizing this content. Again, once President Trump smashed that facade, he gave a permission structure to local broadcasters to finally stand up. And when you're losing money, in the case of Colbert, reportedly $50 million, that's only going to go so far. And the same thing with Kimmel. They're now facing the consequences of the choices that they made to appeal to a very, very narrow audience. Again, you can do that. You can start a podcast. You can go on YouTube. But if you're going to have a license from the FCC, we expect you to broadly serve the public interest.
Okay. We really appreciate your time. Brendan Carr. Thank you, sir. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.